Isn't that good? I've been waiting to say that all morning. Who's kidding me? I got one over here. Well, that's good stuff. If I look familiar to you, that's because I'm now ESPN famous, because they held the camera on me for way too long as I was complaining about some play before halftime. So thank goodness I had a happier face afterwards. But whether you're a Vol fan, the right color, or you're an Alabama fan, or this, that, or the other, we are thankful that you're here, and we're thankful that the family of God stretches far and is all over. But if you do want to put on a shade of orange, the right shade of orange instead of crimson, we are more than happy to help you with that after service. So thank y'all for that. But on a serious note, we do have some things to get to this morning. And I'm glad y'all are here. I'm thankful y'all are here. So I'm glad that you all took Jesus with you on vacation. I'm glad that our locals are here as well. And I'm glad that we get to fellowship with one another and lift up praises to God. So do you know why it's so easy to trick a tree leaf in the fall? It's because they'll fall for anything. It's almost like the tree is ready to turn over a new leaf or something. Well, I hope you didn't fall for any of my bad jokes this morning, pun intended. But fall is in the air. The leaves are changing colors. The red ones are falling faster than the orange ones. And the colder weather is on the way as we welcome in a new season. Now, I'm not sure where everyone is from this morning, but in East Tennessee, we get all 4 seasons, don't we? And if you're really lucky, you'll get all 4 of them in the exact same day. Might even happen today. However, with the leaves falling and the seasons changing, a good fall cleaning is always in store. Now, I know what you're thinking. Maybe you're saying to yourself, now, Jacob, what do you know about cleaning? The answer, not a lot. But thankfully, my wife has it covered. But before you get too excited, we're not going to talk about the best cleaning products on the shelves this morning or any of those fancy life hacks you can find online. But instead, we're going to talk about a spiritual fall cleaning in our lives. This time of the year always reminds me that seasons change not only in the environment around us, but also in our lives. Therefore, this morning, I want us to all ponder what a spiritual fall cleaning would look like in our life. To assist us in that, I've decided to come up with a list of some of the popular fall cleaning items that we can relate to our spiritual life and help us better reflect on what a spiritual cleaning or changing out might look like for us today. So the first thing that you have to do before any fall cleaning can take place is determining exactly what needs to be done. When starting any project, the first task that always has to be completed is an assessment of what all needs to be done. When you're doing a fall cleanup at the house, you might notice that you have a bunch of leaves in the yard. Maybe you need to trim up some hedges. Maybe the siding of the house needs to be cleaned. Maybe a few pieces need to be replaced. Maybe some of the wind that we've had lately has messed up some of the shingles. You need to fix up some of those. Maybe you have work inside the house that needs to be completed. Touch up some paint here. Maybe clean some areas. Dust over here. This, that, and the other. Well, the same should go for our fall spiritual cleaning as well. We first must step back and examine ourselves and see what all is going on in our life today. Do we need to correct our thoughts towards other people? Maybe the thoughts that we have are lustful, or maybe they're angry. Maybe when we step back, we can reflect and we realize that maybe our language, the way that we're speaking to other people, the language that we're using around other people is not what it needs to be. Maybe we can step back and notice that maybe the clothing that we're wearing it's not the proper attire. Maybe we're revealing too much. Maybe we're not respecting the body that belongs to God. You could find that maybe you're spending too much time at work, or too much time on sports, or too much time on this, that, or the other, and it's cutting away time from that you need to be spending with Jesus. The point of all this is that if we fail to do the first step, we're going to struggle we will struggle to make a change. We may never make a change because we're not going to assess what needs to be adjusted in our life. And in fact, I would even argue that if we fail to do this first step, we might even find ourselves floating further and further and further away from God. because we're not seeing what needs to be cleaned up, so it just becomes habit. And then that habit grows into another habit, and then another habit, and another habit. And we drift more and more and more into the things of this world. Now, this idea of self-examination is found all throughout Scripture. And it's something that you especially find in the minor prophets as they are warning the people to turn from their worldly ways and return to the goodness that is found in God. You can also find self-examination in the book of Lamentation when you study and you look at Lamentation 3:4, which says this, "Let us test and examine our ways and return to the Lord." Family, we have to put it to the test. We can't just assume that everything is going to be fine, that everything is just perfect as is. After the test, though, you can examine the results and see if your way matches the Lord's way. It's so easy for the world to drag us down and consume us with all these different things. Consume our time, consume our thoughts, get us to fixate our mind on this instead of fixating our minds on the things above. So during this season of change, we need to be mindful of our self-examination to ensure that our life is following after the things from above and not from the things of this world. Also, might I add this as well, that just because the world is encouraging something and they're telling you that it's a good thing and that this, that, and the other, that does not mean, most likely, almost always, does not mean that that is a thing that God views as a good thing. Just because the world deems it as good does not mean that God is going to deem it as good. Just because the world does not condemn it does not mean that God is not going to condemn it. There is plenty of examples of that in our world today. The standard for our life and the way that we live is not based off of the news that you watch, what the people around you say, or what the world thinks it should be. It is based off of the perfect example of Christ and the life that He lived and the words that He left for us. This time of reflection should happen all throughout our life. It's not something that you just do once in a blue moon and then you move on. It's something that should happen all throughout our life as we press onward towards our eternal home, that is heaven. However, this time of reflection is not something that we can just partake in and then simply walk away and forget. Which you can see that example here as we look at James 1:23 through 25, which says, "For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror, for he looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and preserves, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing." Family, we can't look with intent to do something and then turn around and forget everything. We have to look with intent and make the commitment to change if there's something that needs to be changed or updated or modified or upgraded, whatever you want to say in our life today. Now, as I mentioned before, looking in the mirror and doing a self-reflection is a vital step for all of us. However, we must ensure that we are looking in the right mirror. Probably about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit less time than that, I preached a sermon about something somewhat similar to this, about a mirror, that is. And I used the skinny mirror. I don't know if any of y'all remember this from a handful of years back, but it's from Shark Tank. It's probably been 7, 8, maybe even 10 years now. I don't know. It was on Shark Tank, though. But the skinny mirror, it would make you look really skinny because of the way it was shaped and the design of it. And they were trying to pitch them in these clothing stores. That way people would put on clothing, they'd stand in front of the skinny mirror, and they'd be like, "Man, I look really good." Then you'd go home and you'd look in your own mirror and you'd be like, "This does not look like it did at the store." It was all deceiving. That was the whole concept behind the skinny mirror. The problem is if you start doing that spiritually, it can leave you with a false sense of reassurance. It can make you think things are one way, well, it's really not. You're just looking in the wrong mirror. We have to make sure we're looking in the right one. Our mirror is not what the world is. We don't compare ourselves to the world. We don't compare ourselves to what the world deems as good and give ourselves a false sense of hope. Our mirror is not this world or even the people in the world that the world deems to be good. Our mirror needs to be the perfect example that walked this earth before us, Jesus. Our mirror needs to be directed and built by the law of liberty, the perfect law, the things that God has preserved for us. Those things are the gold standard, you could say. And that's what we should measure. That's how we should be judging to see how we are living our life. And again, we can reflect and we can look in the mirror and then we can instantly turn away and forget all that we noticed. Now don't get me wrong, I'm unbelievably good at telling my wife that I have everything she just told me stored away in my brain. All the men are supposed to say amen. There we go, because we all are out there with us, aren't we? And I'm like, no, I got all of it. I have all of it. Only to turn around and within probably less than a minute, maybe a minute's give myself credit, I forget at least half of it. All joking aside, that can't be our spiritual life when we do self-examination. It can't be it, because this impacts our soul and where it is going to spend eternity. Eternity. This is serious stuff. This is not something to just take lightly or to joke about. This is eternity. Which brings us to the second point this morning. Once we self-reflect and we know and we understand what needs to be cleaned up in our life, what needs to be modified or changed, we must actually be a doer, as we can tell from James 1, 23 through 25, which we just read. A simple acknowledgement of what needs to be changed, it's not enough. You can't just acknowledge it. There has to be some action. We must put things into action and work on correcting things in our life. Again, when you compare this to fall cleaning projects at the house, one can make a list, one can make all the lists that they want. They can add all these different things. It can be a mile long. But if nothing ever gets accomplished, you taking the time to make that list, you looking and self-examining to create that list, it's all for nothing. It was all wasted. The list is pointless if you never accomplish anything on it. Well, family, the same goes for us this morning. We can spend all day, all night, our entire life in self-reflection, and we could acknowledge all that we need to change or modify in our lives. But if we never take the time to actually change, actually clean up, we've wasted it all. It was all for nothing. All the self-examination, all the looking in the mirror, it's all for nothing. We've wasted the time that we've been given. Sometimes people can get in the habit of saying, I'm going to fix that one tomorrow. We're really good about that. About January 1st, we are really good about saying, I'm going to keep this. I'm going to do this for this long. We don't make it to January 15th, do we? I'll get this when I get home from vacation. That's when I'll change it. That's when I'll clean it up. I'm just going to keep enjoying vacation. I'll change this or that when work slows down, when I'm not as busy. It's just a busy season of life. When things slow down, do things really ever slow down? Boy, the world just keeps throwing things at you, doesn't it? I'll make this change when X, Y, and Z takes place. The biggest problem with that mindset is the fact that we're banking on there being a tomorrow. We talked about this in our Sunday morning Bible study. That thought of I'll wait till tomorrow, I'll wait till this or that or whatever happens, you're banking on the fact that there is a tomorrow, that you live to see tomorrow, that Jesus doesn't return before then. Everyone here this morning has one major thing in common. It's the fact that for every single day that you can remember, and before that, before you could even remember, you have gone to sleep at night or at some point and woken back up. Every single one of us here has. But there will be a time when that won't be the case. And because of that, we keep thinking, well, tomorrow will always come. It's always come. For however many years I've lived, I've always fallen asleep, woken back up, and I've had another day. Until that doesn't take place. Don't bank on tomorrow. Let's bank on today, and let's make sure we're the best that we can be today. Brother Brian mentioned this on Wednesday night. It was a beautiful point. But he said eventually all of us are going to reach our point of no return, I believe is how he worded it. A point in our journey where the book is sealed, it's finished, everything is done. What you've completed on your list is what you've completed on your list. And what you have accomplished and obeyed while you walk this earth determines where you spend eternity. Family, for everything, there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to loose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. It's all coming from Ecclesiastes 3. When you go back and you look at the first part of this, wrong way. When you go back and you look at the first part of this, notice the very beginning. A time to be born and a time to die. Both of them are factual. Both of them are going to happen. A time to plant and a time to pluck. There is a time where there's weeping. There's going to be weeping here on earth. And then there's going to be a time of laughter, a time of mourning, and a time of dance. I don't know what your best day you've ever lived is on earth. It will not compare to how great it will be when you get to enter heaven. And I don't care how bad of a day you've ever had. You say, it can't get no worse, Jacob. It sure can, because hell is a real thing. And it can always get worse. And life can always get better because heaven is right before us. Life is all about making the most of the time that we have. Different parts of our life require different actions and different times, different things that we must do. Take the tree, for example, that I joked about earlier at the very beginning. It's the time of the year where people come from all across the world, which always baffles my mind, I guess because I'm so used to it. People come from all over during the fall to see the leaves change. The leaves change colors, they fall, and eventually what happens? The tree sprouts a new leaf in the spring, don't it? Well, family, sometimes our own leaves need to change colors and they need to fall to the ground so that we as well can sprout new leaves and turn over a new leaf. You could even use that pun if you wanted. Family, we have to make sure that we can all live out 2 Timothy 2:15, which says this: do your best. Do your best. Not do the minimum, not do what you think gets by. Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who has no need to be what? Ashamed. I say this all the time. Circle, highlight, underline. You do not want to get to the final day of life and be ashamed of what you've done in this life. You don't want it. We have a chance to fix it. We have a chance to be right. No need to be ashamed. Rightfully handling the word of truth. 2 Timothy 2:15. This morning you may think your list of cleaning seems extra long. Now, I don't know how I'm going to get all this done. I've got so many things to clean up. But what's important is that you do what? That you do your best. You do your best. You give it your all. That you truly present yourself to God so that you can be one approved. And not the one that wasted the little bit of time that you were given on earth. And it resulted in something that you're ashamed in. People will, they'll just stop on projects. They'll halfway do it. They'll try to do the bare minimum. Someone comes look at it, they're ashamed of it. Don't let that be our life today. Give it all you have so that you don't have to even worry about being ashamed about it. Life is short, and we need to make the most of it because eternity is just around the corner. Stop acting like it's really, really far off. It's not. Life on earth is short. Eternity is forever. However, we can't just stop at simply cleaning, because steps 3 and 4 are just as important during our fall cleaning. After we have recognized what we need to do and we've started cleaning, we must follow up with the ever so important step 3 and 4, which is, or step 3, I guess, which is hauling off the trash or the unneeded things. Get gone with it. Get rid of it. Whatever phrase you want to use. Get rid of it. Move on from it. You can pick up all the leaves you want from your yards. I know back at my mama's house, we used to, she'd buy the big old orange trash bags, and they had like the little pumpkin kind of face on it. That's what we'd always put them in. Every single year, it's what we'd rake our leaves up to. You can rake up the leaves. You can collect all the leaves you want all day, every day during the fall. But if you never take them anywhere, you're still left with a whole bunch of leaves, just in a different spot. You can pick up and you can clean all those things in your house, but if you leave them in the trash bag and it never leaves the house, guess what? You still got the same thing you cleaned, and it's still in your house, and now it might even start to stink. The list can go on and on and on. Understanding what needs to be done and cleaning things up is vitally important. But at a certain point, you have to start the process of getting rid of the unnecessary things, getting them away from you, separating yourself from them. The thought goes back to what we talked about in Ecclesiastes 3, especially in verse 6, which says, a time to keep and a time to cast away. Some people, when they decide to clean, they just get really, really good at rearranging everything in their house. They're just good at cleaning and they just rearrange. Nothing actually ever leaves because they got a problem with getting rid of things. We can't have that in our life today. If we aren't careful, we can do the exact same thing in our lives. And at the end, you're going to be ashamed because you never threw it away. We can notice things that need to be cleaned up, and we can attempt to clean them, but if we fail to get rid of the actual root cause that causes the mess to begin with, we're just going to have to continue to clean. It's just going to continue to happen because it's the root cause. For example, if you got a leak in your roof, and you notice the leak, it's making a mess. You got a stain up on the ceiling. Maybe some water has hit the floor. You paint the ceiling with, I think it's like Upshot or something like that. You spray you put on there. You cover it up. You wipe up the water on the floor. But you don't fix the leak in the roof. What's going to happen the next time it rains? Water's going to come straight through, and you can't even tell that you fixed anything. The same thing in our life today. We can notice what needs to be done. We can notice that we maybe have anger in a certain situation, but if we keep interacting with the same crowd that brings us anger, why do we keep putting ourselves in that? Why do we keep cleaning when the root cause is still there? We have to get rid of it. Otherwise, we're just doing a whole bunch of unnecessary cleaning. Now, I don't know about you all. I'm not even a big fan of cleaning. So why would I want to do unnecessary cleaning? Let's clean it one time. Let's make sure it's good. Let's do it the right way. Maybe you notice that you don't act the way that you should be acting when you're with a certain group of people. Maybe you act differently at work than you do at church. Maybe you act different with this group over here than you would along your Christian brothers and sisters. Well, you can notice these issues. You can work on these certain issues, but there comes a time when you need to distance yourself from that situation. Because the destination of your soul is far more important and far greater than whatever you're getting into with your friends or whoever you're with here on earth. Your soul is more important. The destination of your soul is more important. Therefore, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, not a dead one, a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not what? Do not be conformed to this world. Never forget that part. But be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. Romans 12, 1 through 2. This world is going to try to shape you. This world is going to try and mold you into what it thinks you should be. Which at this point is literally anything you want to be. That is the language they will use. You can be whatever you want to be, as long as it's not a Christian. The world wants to shape you. He's the potter, we are the clay. We can't forget that. The world is going to expose you to countless, I don't even know what word number you could use, too many awful things in this world. And they're going to try to convince you that it's good for you, that it's pleasing, The father of lies, Satan himself, is trying to lure you and entice you away from what is good. He doesn't want you to distance yourself from the things that cause you to stumble. No, instead, he wants you to find more stumbling blocks. That way you can continue to trip over them as he watches. It brings him pleasure. He doesn't care if you follow step 1 and you realize what needs to be changed. He doesn't care if you take action and you actually start to clean in step 2. Satan just wants to ensure that you don't actually remove and get rid of the stumbling blocks. He wants you to keep them right where they're at. He wants to ensure that the things that trigger you, the things that cause the mess in the first place, stay in place. The roof leak that I mentioned a moment ago, he is just patiently waiting for that leak to get bigger and bigger and bigger so it can impact more and more things. Oh, it started off with just a little bit of a wet spot on the ceiling. Well, now it's spread. Now you got mold. Now you got some structural damage because it was never fixed. And Satan is like, just like I wanted it. This is why correcting the portion that is causing the mess in our life is so important. Maybe we need to change who we are hanging around. Maybe we need to change the environment that we are placing ourselves in. Maybe we need to change, this is important, the music that we listen to, or what we watch on TV, what we subject our eyes and our ears to, because maybe that's damaging for our soul. Family, don't just put a shine on your stumbling block in life. Don't just shine it up, make it look all good and clean, and then leave it there. Pick them up and cast them away so that your life can be more step by step and closer to Christ each and every day. We don't live life to shine our stumbling blocks. We live life to get rid of our stumbling blocks because this is temporary and heaven is eternal. And that is where we are going. Now, with any house cleaning project, you can sometimes leave spaces looking a little bit empty. You get rid of those stumbling blocks, now there's a bit of an empty space, which brings us to our next point. After you've recognized what needs to be changed, you've cleaned up, you've addressed the root cause, you now need to replace those things that you cast aside, and you need to update them. You need to upgrade them. Well, you're getting a new couch now. The couch is broken, now you're getting a new one. The shingles were leaking, you're getting a new roof. We're updating, we're upgrading, we're replacing the old with something better because we have cast away our former life and we're on to something better. Oftentimes in life, people will try to fill their voids with all kinds of worldly things. People think that drugs, that'll take care of it. That'll keep my mind off of it. People think money. The more money I get, the better I'll feel. Well, it never works that way, does it? Never works that way. Drinking, I'll forget about all this stress that I'm in. Don't work that way. All these other inappropriate worldly things, people will think they can just fill those voids with. However, our focus should be on finding the stumbling blocks in our life, discarding, casting them away, and then adding more lights to our path to help guide us on our way home to heaven. If we decide we need to distance ourselves from certain people because of the influence they have on us, well, let's make sure that we replace them with good and strong Christian friends, good influences in our life. And the same thought goes wherever your stumbling block might be. Pouring out half of your cup could be a great thing because you get rid of all the unnecessary, all the unneeded things in it. But unless you replace it with something good, you've just left empty space. You've just left a foothold for the devil. You just got some empty void. We have to replace it with something good and something pleasing. We're changing. We're working on getting better. We're working on getting closer to Christ. But not only that, maybe one point that I failed to mention so far this morning is that we must be willing to clean the entire situation. We don't look at our list and only clean the easy things or only clean the things that people see. Maybe you got one part of the house that it's just always a little bit messier than the rest, but no one ever goes back there, so it don't matter. That's just as important in our spiritual cleaning as the part that everyone can see. We can't just clean the public-facing things and refuse to change the things in our secret life. Because God is a God of secret and knows just as much about our secret life as He does about our life that is clear as day to the public. This is something that Jesus brought up numerous times when discussing back and forth with the Pharisees and other religious leaders of His time. They were masters at making the outward appearance look pleasing and well put together and just all around honorable things. However, on the inside, they had a problem. On the inside, they were full of anger, full of wrath. They had corrupted the way, and they were living a life that was leading straight to destruction. But boy, did it look good on the outside. Boy, it was shiny. Boy, they look happy. Outwardly, people can fake happiness. You see it all the time. Outwardly, they can look really happy. But inwardly, they could be depressed and wondering why they should even live any longer. Outwardly, people can make their marriage look really good. They can seem real happy. They can seem like their marriage has it all put together. But they go home, you close the door, anger, wrath, arguing, all that ensues. The world don't see it, but it's a real thing. People can act like they got everything going good. Everything's on the up and up by the possessions that they have. Boy, they got the nicest clothes, the nicest house, the nicest car. They can buy this, that, and the other. They never have to worry about a thing. But inwardly, they are wondering how they're going to pay off that credit card they just decided to max out. Inwardly, they're like, when will all these possessions make me happy? When does it fill the void? People are going to pretend to be a lot of ways. But God's not worried about the outside of the cup, but instead the inside. Follow with me as we look at the conversation he had with the Pharisees in Matthew 23, 25 through 26, which says this. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and the plate, that the outside also may be clean. Now I'd imagine that nobody here would like to drink out of a cup that was only cleaned on the outside. I know I wouldn't. I would also imagine that nobody wants to eat off of a plate that only the outside was washed. But the middle part where your food is, boy, it still got the last guy's food. Anybody lining up to eat there? If you go to a restaurant after service this morning, and they got a special going on. Boy, it's a good special. The waitress or waiter comes out and says, we got a special. We're only cleaning, we've extra cleaned, we've super duper cleaned the outside of all the cups and the outside of all the plates. But because we extra clean so much, the inside of the cup and the inside of the plate, it's still a little dirty. But that's our special. People would be so upset. And they would be demanding that everything be clean, inside and out. It wouldn't be good enough, would it? Absolutely not. And I would guarantee you that most of us, hopefully all of us, would pass on that special. So I think I'm going to go to the restaurant down the street that cleans everything. I think I'm going to go eat somewhere else. Well, if it's not good enough for a restaurant, if it's not good enough for you to go eat at, why would it be good enough for our spiritual life today? It don't make no sense. It don't pass the smell test. It don't pass the common sense test. Family, it doesn't matter if your clothes you're wearing are the nicest clothes that you could ever possibly buy. It doesn't matter if they are fresh from the store or if they got stains because you spilt your coffee on the way into church this morning. It don't matter. What matters is that your soul is clean and that you're living your life for Christ. It doesn't matter what the outward appearance looks like. It matters how you're presenting your life to Christ. It matters what the spiritual appearance is and what it's going to look like on Judgment Day. Forget the idea of trying to impress the world and embrace the idea of living for Christ each and every day. As I mentioned earlier, this life is extremely short in the grand scheme of things. In fact, it wouldn't even show up on a radar if you compare it to eternity. You wouldn't even notice it. You could look at a map of our entire life. You wouldn't even notice on that map where the mark is that we lived, because eternity is forever. This life don't compare to how long eternity is. Therefore, why waste the little time that we have here on earth on things that are temporary, on things that won't matter in the long run, on things that stain your soul instead of cleansing it? Family, we must make the best and most use of the time that we have because it's limited, and eternity is just before us. This morning, you might find yourself needing to start with self-examination because your life feels empty. Your life feels like it's just not on the right track. Your life feels like you're just one big old empty mess. Well, I got good news. I got really good news. The day is still young. It's only 11:27. And the patience of the Lord is still providing time for you to reflect and see the things that need to be cleaned up. Maybe this morning, you already have a good idea of the things that you need to clean up, the things you need to change in your life, but you haven't started to clean yet. Why wait? Why wait? Why push it off till tomorrow? Why procrastinate? Why wait any longer? Why bank on tomorrow? Start the cleaning process today. Maybe you've cleaned, but you're still holding on, and you still find yourself cleaning up the same mess time and time and time again. You got a roof leak. It just keeps dripping. Boy, you keep painting the ceiling, you keep cleaning up the water puddle. Maybe you put a bucket underneath it. That way you don't have to clean up the wet floor. Fix the roof. Fix the root cause. Why keep cleaning up the same mess when you can be set free in Christ? Why? When you read the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 3, you will find this concept of taking care of the root cause all throughout the text. Jesus, one by one, looks at the root cause of a different sin, and he starts addressing it time and time and time again. Maybe you've done all these things. Maybe you've addressed the root cause already, but now you feel empty because you've taken those things out of your life. You've cast away the stumbling blocks, but now you feel distance from people. Maybe you've cut some friends off, and now you feel like you have a void. Well, now is the perfect time to add those good and holy things to your life. It's always a good time to add more Christian friends. It's always a time to store up more treasure in heaven. Find a Bible study group. Find other Christian friends. Find somebody in your congregation. That's what the family of God is all about. That's what's so beautiful, especially about this congregation right here when you look at it. We have 14 million people that visit here, and we get Christians from all over the place. You know what's beautiful from that? You can come here, I could go to your congregation, and we still the family of God. It don't matter where you are. It don't matter if you're in Pigeon Forge, or if you're somewhere in Alabama, or I don't know if Emmanuel's here. If you're down there in Jamaica with Emmanuel, you're still part of the family of God. Everywhere. Everywhere. Never leaves you. Find the things that matter and the things that will impact your eternity in a positive way, and fill your life with those things. Fill your life with those things. Fill your life with the things that really matter. This morning, I'm not sure what part of the journey you are on, where you find yourself, but I want you to know that myself, the elders, the family of God here this morning is willing and able to help you. If you haven't committed your life to Christ, again, why wait any longer? Why bank on tomorrow? Today is the day that the Lord has made, and we can rejoice in it. You could take that step this morning, but likewise, if you've already made that commitment, but you find yourself in a tough spot, you're dealing with one of these cleaning things you need to take care of, you can come forward. We can pray with you. We can help you. We can assist you. Wherever you find yourself, whether you're ready to give your life to Christ, or whether there's something you need to clean up and you want prayers from the family of God, you can do that as we stand and as we sing.